Everyone, welcome to all 4 C learning classes. This is Zoology subject, 3rd chapter, session 17, internal structure of the heart. We'll discuss. Already we have discussed this. Previously we have discussed the closed and open type of circulatory system. Human beings are showing the closed type of circulatory system. Closed and open type of circulatory system have the differences. Closed type of circulatory system, blood do not comes out of the blood vessels, whereas open type of the circulatory system, the blood comes out. And the closed type of circulatory system, the blood pressure is high, whereas in open type of circulatory system, the blood flow with low pressure. And in the case of the closed type of circulatory system, efficiently the blood flow, whereas in open type it is the less efficient. And it is seen in the case of the closed type of circulatory system, all annelids except the leeches and cephalopods of the molluscans, cephalochordata, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, aves, and mammals. Open type of circulatory system in the case of the arthropods, molluscans, echinoderms, urochordata. Thus, heart is said to be the mesodermal origin structure. It is a mesodermal and the pulsatile pumping organ, which is said to be the myogenic. We have already discussed that the case with the human heart, it is muscular. That is, the action potentials are generated by the specialized muscle cells, name it to be the cardiomyocytes. It does not require any stimulus, external stimuli from the outside. Whereas the case with all other body parts which require the stimuli from the nervous system, external stimuli required. But here the heart of the human beings is with the myogenic heart, as it is with the specialized muscle cells which generate the action potential. SAN is said to be the sinoatriolar node, which is acting as a pacemaker, which can generate the action potential in 0.6 seconds without the external stimuli. So a myogenic heart is working based on its own muscle tissue. The specialized muscle cells, cardiomyocytes, what initiates its functioning, that's what it is, myogenic. Heart is with the parts, now we'll discuss that is the atria, ventricles, nodal tissues and aortic arches. Now we'll discuss aortic arches is what now we'll discuss. So atria are considered to be the anterior most chambers of the heart, is named to be the atria. This is the RA refers to right atrium, whereas this is considered to be the left atrium. And this is the right ventricle, whereas this is the left ventricle. Atria are considered to be the anterior most blood receiving chambers. They are with the thin walls when compared with the ventricles. If you look at of all the chambers of the heart, the left ventricle is with the thickest walls. Of all the heart chambers, the left ventricle is with the thickest wall. The atria are the anterior most chambers and which have a appendage is named to be the auricle. Not to say the atria is not at all atria is a chamber, but it is not with the term auricle. Auricle is an appendage. In some of the text you may cross atria or auricle. Auricle is an appendage. Atria is a chamber. The appendage in the atria is an auricle. It is given name as it resembles the shape of the ear. That's what auricular muscles present over here. Pinna which is the auricle is what name it to be. That's what the appendage in the heart chamber called the atria is named it to be the auricle. And this is the one which is responsible for increasing the surface area, increase the atria surface. That is what its significance. Two atria are separated by means of interatrial septum into right atrium, left atrium. Right atrium is larger, whereas the left atrium is smaller. Right atrium receives the deoxygenated blood, left atrium receives the oxygenated blood. Right atrium receives the blood from, look at here, the right atrium receives the blood from the vena cava system, vena cava, that is superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Look at here, this is the inferior vena cava. In the same manner, we find the superior vena cava opening into the what is called right atrium. This is the posterior or inferior vena cava, The superior in the sense upper or the precaval veins. Inferior in the sense the posterior, that is one said to be the postcaval vein. So two precaval veins collecting the blood from anterior parts. Recall your memory, we have discussed that the thoracic duct or left lymphatic duct as well as right lymphatic duct open at the junction of subclavian vein and internal jugular vein. In fact, they are the branches of the precaval vein. Precaval vein collects the blood from an anterior part of the body, which includes the head. Head parts are jaws, lips, salivary glands, tongue, as well as the parts of the brain, as well as the shoulder, that is limbs, and the chest region it collects. Those are what the region from which internal mammary vein collects the impure deoxygenated blood from the chest region. The subclavian vein collects the deoxygenated blood from the shoulder and the limbs. Brachial artery, in fact, it is having the branches. And the jugular vein, which is the external jugular as well as internal jugular. Internal jugular collect the blood from the internal parts of the brain. Generally, the internal parts of the brain from which the blood collected by the internal jugular. External jugular from the parts of the externally appearing lips, jaws, tongue, from which it collects. So those are what are the branches of the precaval vein of right and the left side. And what bring the deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. In the same manner, the inferior vena cava or else the posterior postcaval vein collect the blood from the posterior part, hind limbs. Femoral vein collecting the blood from the femur. Renal vein from the kidneys. Uterine, the vesicular vein from the urinary bladder. Iliac vein. Likewise, from the posterior part of the body, the blood collected by the inferior vena cava or the postcaval vein. All this includes the deoxygenated blood into the right atrium, whereas the left atrium receives the oxygenated blood from the lungs. You are familiar with this. Already we discussed that. From the lungs, the oxygenated blood pumped into the left atrium by means of the pulmonary veins. There are two pairs of the pulmonary veins which is bringing the blood into the left atrium. Pulmonary veins carry the oxygenated blood. And these two pairs of the openings are with the commonly operated by a pair of the pulmonary vein with the one opening and another pair. Since each lung with a pair of pulmonary veins, so two pairs have separate single aperture for each pair of the pulmonary veins. So the number of the pulmonary veins are 4. Pulmonary veins are the 4 in number. 4 pulmonary veins. This is how it collects the oxygenated blood. The two atria are separated by means of interatricular septum, which have an opening named to be the foramen of Ovale. This foramen of Ovale pump or send the blood brought about by postcaval vein into the left atrium, and this is guarded by means of a inferior vena valve, or else it is named to be the Eustachian valve. And generally, as the fetal stage, embryonic stage, the individual, the fetus or embryo do not have independent breathing. It is dependent on the parent. Whereas just before the birth, the lungs become functional. As soon as it becomes functional, the eustachian valve become rudimentary or else the non-functional. This is considered to be the rudimentary or non-functional valve is none other than the eustachian valve. Next, the case with the right atrium receiving the blood deoxygenated from different parts. So keep in mind, left atrium receiving the oxygenated blood from the pulmonary veins. The postcaval vein, which is bringing the deoxygenated blood pumped into the left atrium through an opening named to be the foramen of Ovale, which is functional in the embryonic stage for pumping the blood into the left atrium. Whereas as soon as the lungs become functional, it becomes a patch named to be the fossa ovalis. That's all about the atria. Atria lead into the next one we'll discuss is ventricles. Ventricles in the sense the posterior chambers. They are the posterior blood pumping chambers, and these are with the thick walls when compared with that of the atria. The two ventricles are separated by means of interventricular septum. Interventricular septum. One point to recall that some babies are born with incompletely closed the foramen of Ovale, which means it is not completely closed. Such a condition is named to be the patent foramen Ovale, a condition that is impartially closed foramen of Ovale, and they show the consequences in terms of the blood circulation in the later on stages. Next, the interventricular septum separates the ventricles into right ventricle as well as the left ventricle. In fact, left ventricle is longer than that of the right ventricle, narrower and longer. That's the reason why it is somewhat protruded anterior when compared with the right ventricle. The ventricles are with the thick walls. Right atrium lead into right ventricle by means of opening named to be the right atrioventricular apertures. I repeat, apertures in the sense the blood needs to flow. So right atrium opens into the left atrium by means of apertures named to be the right atrioventricular apertures, which are guarded by means of the three leaf-like the structures of flaps named to be the what is called tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve is the valve guards the right atrioventricular aperture. which prevents the backward flow of the blood from ventricle back into the atria. In the same manner, left atrium opens into left ventricle by means of left atrioventricular aperture. We can see left here, left atrioventricular aperture. Aperture literally means opening, and this is surrounded by means of bicuspid or else the mitral valve, which prevents the backward flow of the blood from left ventricle into left atrium. This is how the pumping takes place. Apart from that, the ventricles from their walls, if we observe, this is the ventricles. From the walls of the ventricle, there originate the muscular ridges. Muscular ridges originate from the walls of the ventricle, which are what name it to be the columnae cornea, or else trabecular cornea. Some of these columnae cornea are larger in some of the muscular ridges are larger. These larger muscular ridges are named to be the papillary muscles. These are what considered to be the papillary muscles. I repeat, the wall of the ventricle raises into the muscular ridges, name it to be the columnae cornea or trabecular cornea. Among these, some of the muscular ridges are large, name it to be the papillary muscles. These papillary muscles connected to the AV valves. Just now we have discussed, this is the tricuspid valve, whereas this is the bicuspid valve. So the papillary muscles are connected to the atrioventricular valves by means of cord-like, tendon-like structures, name it to be what is called the chorda tendinae. I repeat, I'll write once again, chorda tendinae, in the sense the connections between the papillary muscles with that of the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves, name it to be the tendon-like cords, name it to be the chorda tendinae. These chorda tendinae prevents the too far bulging of the ventricles into the atria. That is too far bulging of the AV valves into the atria. For suppose, if the valves are enter into the atria, how does it prevents the backward flow? So it's a too far bulging. For suppose if they are bulged like this too far bulging of the AV valves into the atria prevented by chorda tendinae. This is what all about the ventricles. Of all, if you observe, of all the four chambers, the left ventricle is with the thickest wall, and it is what is called longer and narrower, which receive the oxygenated blood from the left atrium. This is the information about the ventricle. Next, we'll move on to the aortic arches. Aortic arches in the sense, in case of the human heart, there are two aortic arches. All mammals are characterized by presence of two aortic arches. The two aortic arches here we see are one pulmonary aortic arch, and the second one is considered to be the left systemic aortic arch, aortic arch. In fact, the pulmonary aortic arch which originate from the right ventricle, for suppose if we look at here, this is where we can see the origin of this is the pulmonary aortic arch. Pulmonary trunk also, it is the term given to it. It is originate from the right ventricle, and at its junction it is with the three half moon shaped valves are present, name it to be the pulmonary valve. They are semi-lunar valves, half moon shaped. Lunar in the sense moon, so half moon, semi-lunar valve. There are three semi-lunar valves present at the origin of the pulmonary aortic arch and the right ventricle, which prevents the backward flow of the blood from pulmonary trunk back into the right ventricle. And generally these are what? Three semilunar valve together, name it to be the pulmonary valve, pulmonary trunk valve or pulmonary aortic valve. In the same manner, from the left ventricle there present the left systemic aortic arch, left systemic aortic arch, look at here, left systemic aortic arch. Two aortic arches are seen, right and left, which is seen in the case of both amphibians and reptiles, whereas in aves only right systemic, but mammals left systemic. This left systemic arch originates from the left ventricle and runs forward, and at its origin also three half moon shaped semi-lunar valves are present. Three semi-lunar valves. These semilunar valves are named to be the systemic valve. So systemic valve, pulmonary aortic valve. So these are what we see as a valve which prevent the backward flow. So the left systemic aortic arch originate at the left ventricle, whereas right ventricle from which the pulmonary aortic arch originate. At its origin there are three half moon shaped valves named to be the semilunar valves. These three together at the pulmonary aortic arch or pulmonary trunk named to be the pulmonary trunk valve, whereas here the three semilunar valves present between the left ventricle and left systemic aortic arch is systemic valve. So these are the two types of the valve. In the case of human beings adult, there are the five valves we came across. However, four are functional in the adult, one is vestigial. Let me clear you that generally the blood brought about by from different parts, particularly the heart receives the blood from different parts. So there we see, that is the blood from brought about from the wall of, even from its wall also, the blood is brought about, which is named to be the coronary artery and coronary veins. Coronary artery supplies the blood to the walls of the heart, and the blood brought about by the veins from heart walls into the right atrium is named to be the coronary vein. This is important to note. Coronary vein collect the deoxygenated blood from the walls of the heart. Coronary artery, whatever the supplying, will have the same name. So coronary veins bringing about the blood from the walls of the heart, particularly walls of the heart we have discussed. There are three. A wall of the heart is with three names. It is with the epicardium, endocardium and myocardium. So it collects the blood from the heart wall by means of coronary vein. These coronary veins are joined together forming coronary sinuses. Coronary sinuses. Sinuses means it is nothing but a collection of all coronary veins. And this coronary veins opens into the right atrium by means of an opening. This is guarded by means of a valve of Thebaceous. Valve of Thebaceous. Valve of Thebaceous is what we came across. Valve of Thebaceous. I repeat, the blood from the wall of the heart is brought about by coronary veins. All these coronary veins join together forming coronary sinuses. This coronary sinuses bring about the blood since it is deoxygenated into the right atrium, and that opening is guarded by valve of Thebaceous. And one more also we discussed. At the embryonic stage, the blood brought about from the posterior part by postcaval vein is guarded, is pumped. That is, it is guided towards the left atrium by means of an opening, name it to be the foramina foveal present on the interatricular septum. Surrounding this, a valve is present, name it to be the eustachian valve or inferior vena cava valve. As soon as the lungs become functional, this remain as a patch which is named to be the fossa ovalis, the opening. And when the opening become a patch, so there is no role played by the valve that is guiding the blood into the another chamber, in fact which is taking place at the embryonic stage. So this is what we find the valves associated with the heart of the human being. One, valve of Thebaceous, bicuspid valve, tricuspid valve, pulmonary and the systemic valves, name it to be the semilunar valves, as well as the one name it to be the eustachian. Among this, the non-functional we referred as, or rudimentary non-functional, is the eustachian valve. This is what the valves, if you are asked, the list of the valve: bicuspid, tricuspid valve, systemic valve, pulmonary valve, valve of Thebaceous and eustachian. Of all these, the eustachian valve is rudimentary or non-functional in the adult stage. Embryonically, at the junction between the pulmonary aortic arch and the left systemic arch, there present a blood vessel, name it to be the ductus aorticus. Ductus aorticus. At the contact of left systemic aortic arch and the pulmonary trunk or pulmonary aortic arch, at the contact of pulmonary trunk or pulmonary aortic arch and left systemic arch, there present a blood vessel, name it to be the ductus aorticus. This ductus aorticus embryonically present fetal stage. In the adult stage, it is modified to form a fibrous strand, name it to be the ligamentum arteriosum. Ligamentous or ligamentum arteriosum. This is what we see. So, ligamentum arteriosum is a fibrous strand which is a modified ductus arteriosum or ductus aorticus. Ductus aorticus is a blood vessel that connects the left systemic and pulmonary aortic arch at the embryonic stage, which become a ligamentum arteriosum. Next, after this aortic arches will go for the nodal tissues. So, all these terms are related to the heart to keep in mind in the best way. Definitely from circulatory system, the questions are going to be asked. So far the terms, if we observe here, myogenic heart, right atrium, left atrium, auricle, interatricular septum, foramen of ovale, fossa ovale, patent foramen ovale. Next, bicuspid valve, tricuspid valve, valve of Sebaceous, eustachian valve, semilunar valve. Next, chorda tendineae, columnae cornea, papillary muscles is all what we have seen. Now let's move on to the nodal tissue. Nodal tissue in the sense, the heart of the human being have a specialized cells named to be the cardiomyocytes. The nodal tissues are part of the human heart. That is, there are specialized cells, cells present in the heart of the human beings, name it to be the cardiomyocytes. Myo refer to muscles, cardio, heart. So specialized in muscle cells, what name it to be the nodal tissues. These cardiomyocytes, which is nodal tissue, are of two kinds. One is named to be the sinoatriolar node and another is named to be the atrioventricular node. The specialized cells. Why? We have discussed that the heart of the human being is myogenic. What do you mean by that? It means that heart initiate the action potential on its own without involving the external stimuli. That is none other than by means of cardiomyocytes, a specialized tissue, which is named to be the sinoatriolar node and atrioventricular node. This is the reason why, as the heart does not require the contraction by any external stimuli, that's the reason why even if the heart is brought out of the body, it contracts, beat. That's what it is, the autonomous. The specialized cells, cardiomyocytes, SAN and AVN. Thus SAN is said to be the pacemaker. The meaning of the pacemaker means the area where initiation of the heartbeat starts is a pacemaker, which is present right. Look at here, this is the SAN. SAN is located at the right upper corner of the right atrium, near the opening of the superior vena cava, nothing but the precaval veins. I repeat, the precaval veins bring about the blood from different parts of the anterior region. At the opening of the superior vena cava, superior or precaval veins are same. At the opening of the superior vena cava, nearer to that, the SAN is located at the right upper corner of the right atrium, close to the opening of the superior vena cava or precaval vein. The SAN is located. It is acting as a pacemaker as it initiates the heartbeat. That's what it is, a pacemaker. Next, one more nodal tissue is named to be the AVN, atrioventricular node. This is the one more nodal tissue named to be the relay point. What do you mean by that? Which as it received the signals from the wave of contraction from SAN, send it into the AVN, and this AVN is present at the lower part of, look at here where you find the lower part of the right atrium, close to the interatriolar, nearer to the interatriolar septum, left side, lower part of the right atrium, the AVN is present, atrioventricular node. This is the another nodal tissue which is acting as a relay point, and this is connected to what is called a bundle of his or his bundle of his or his bundle. It is said to be the his bundle. Basically, this bundle of his or his bundle is none other than, it is a bundle of the muscle fiber which is present, however it is connected to the AV node and it is extended over the interventricular septum. Look at here, interventricular septum. On the interventricular septum, this bundle of is bifurcated. Look at here, it is bifurcated, branched. It is bifurcated, and this bundle of is connected to the walls of the ventricle by means of the fibers, name it to be the Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers. These are innervate into the walls of the ventricle, and thereby the ventricular musculature it is connected. So the SAN, sinoatricular node, which initiates the action potential, that is sent into AVN. SAN send the wave of action potential to the, it generates the action potential that is sent into the AVN. AVN is connected to the bundle of his. Bundle of his is bifurcated, extend over the entire ventricle, and by Purkinje fiber it is connected to the Purkinje fibers. These Purkinje fibers connected to the walls of WALL, wall, not valve, walls of the ventricle. So this results in sending the wave of contraction from atria to ventricles, and the ventricle contract. One point to remember that all the four chambers of the heart of the human being do not contract simultaneously. Why? This is the reason. That is, the muscle fibers of the atria are discontinuous to that of the muscle fibers of the ventricles. So first atria, then ventricle, and how this wave of contraction transported, this is the way. First the atria contract by the action potential generated by SAN. The SAN is a nodal tissue which is with the specialized tissue, cardiomyocyte. A cardiomyocyte can generate an action potential by at 0.6 seconds. Once it generates the action potential, it is being sent into the AVN. SAN is located at the right upper corner of the right atrium, close to the opening of the precaval vena or superior vena cava. Then it is sent into the two chambers of the atria. Then this wave of contraction to the AVN to bundle of his, which is however start at the atria, it is extended over the ventricle and it is bifurcated, and this is connected through Purkinje fibers into the walls of the ventricle. Then the walls of the ventricles contract. Then the blood pumping continues. That's the reason why SAN and AVN are nodal tissues. This is the pacemaker, whereas this is the relay point. Thank you.